The Common Core standards have been adopted by nearly every state in the nation, in addition to D.C., territories, and even the Defense Department schools globally. But why did they do this? What made this happen? The goal is to prepare students so that they can succeed in life, both in college and career, and to make sure that the expectations are the same no matter where they live. To provide educators, parents, and students with an understandable set of guideposts so that they can line up what they're doing and provide the economies of scale that allow us to share best practices. This is very hard to do previously when we had 50 different standards that were contradictory in some cases. In a nutshell, I explain it this way. We're shifting from percentages to performances. So ask yourself this question, especially if you're in New Orleans today and you didn't drive there. Would you board a plane that could reach 85% of takeoff speed? Would you go with a pilot who'd earned an A in everything except landing? Of course not. Percentages were how we used to measure things in terms of scores, and it was okay for us not to know how to do some things as long as, on whole, we did all right. Now it's just a simple matter of being able to do things. As Yoda says, there is no try, there is just do. And we're really coming from two different worlds, employers and educators. When surveyed about what creativity means, employers and superintendents ranked their top 10 or 11 factors, and we can see that we are looking at two different things. For employers, finding problems is the most important thing, whereas for superintendents, solving problems is the most important thing. And most of those problems are in the back of the book. When we look at the top 5, there was a tie for employers. Comfort with the notion that there is no one single right answer, and that fundamental curiosity that has you looking for answers, where superintendents really valued the ability to communicate new ideas to others. Is it any wonder that we're seeing that the employers are not getting the people that they need? So if we're going to reach higher learning, we have to have it built upon deeper foundations. Here are 3 objects you could use to create a foundation. No one is better than the other, depending on the purpose you have. If your purpose is transient knowledge, you know you're going to be picking up and moving, and you have to move from place to place to place, such as the learning that you have for a test. You have to memorize something, and then you have to clear out that memory so that you can learn something else to repeat on a daily basis. Then you're going to use that tent spike. If, however, you're trying to create something that's more like daily life knowledge, which could be good enough for you to learn to get a job and graduate and maybe even own that house in the blueprint, then you're going to want to have something more like the cinder blocks that go below ground. But today what we're really trying to do is build societally sustaining knowledge. And in that case, our foundation may be multi-stories underground. Those I-beams are what you need there to learn enough to build upon. So what does the college and career readiness standards of the Common Core really ask us to do in English language arts, or in science, or in math? Well, let's look at what we say in reading. First, reading, of course, is part of English language arts, but what we mean now are the key ideas, details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas, and range of reading and text complexity. Simple enough to say. From there we go to writing. And when we're looking at writing, we're looking at the text type and purposes, production and distribution of writing, research to build and present knowledge, and the range of writing. There are 2 items you see here that really can't be done today without technology, which is beginning to pre-shadow why you might be so important on the team that's trying to implement Common Core. We move from writing to speaking and listening. And in these cases, we're looking at comprehension and collaboration and presentation of knowledge and ideas. While comprehension is something that goes on inside our heads, collaboration is something that takes place today with technology, as does the presentation of knowledge and ideas. And language. When we look at language, we're looking at the conventions of standard English, knowledge of language, vocabulary acquisition and use. And while these things do not depend upon technology to happen, technology certainly makes a wide audience where these skills are either in evidence or they're lacking. You don't want to end up on Jay Leno as one of the funny headlines because you didn't know how to do these three things. So this is what we're looking at for English language arts in the Common Core. How about math? Math is very interesting because in addition to the content standards, we have these standards of practice. And the first thing we're being asked to do is make sense of problems and to persevere in solving them. I don't know about you, but that was never a requirement in my math classes. From there, we move to reason. We should be able to reason abstractly and quantitatively. And we should be able to construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. We then move on to using mathematics to model. And most models these days are using simulation or other types of software. That means having the tools available and knowing when to use the right tools strategically. This one we've always had, precision, is very important, still a very important practice for math. Now we're also being asked to look for and make use of structure and to look for regularity in the reasoning that we're doing. This is categorically different to how we've approached math before. And as you can see, although it may not say technology in there, the way that math gets done these days depends upon technology being infused throughout these standards of practice. The reality, though, is quite different. The Gates Foundation went to over 4,000 classrooms and studied what's going on so that they could identify measures of teaching that would be good. They looked at student perceptions, teacher assessments, student content, all of those things, the perception and assessments, and this is what they found. In the English language arts class, green is good, red is not so good. And what this shows is in the English language arts class, we're really good, comparatively, at behavior management and time management, crowd control, if you will. But when it comes to intellectual challenge, classroom discourse, strategy use, or modeling, it's hardly happening at all. There's almost no evidence of modeling. And in math, the situation is almost the same. It's good to know that we are doing classroom work connected with math in the math classroom, and it's good to know that we are focusing on the absence of errors, but when it comes to explicitness or working with students in math, richness, or even having students participate in making meaning out of what they're doing, we're almost missing in action. You can see the difference between common practice and common core practice that's going to be needed. So what is the role of technology in doing the Common Core? Well, as we saw with ELA, production and distribution of writing is huge, but also research. There's so much of the Common Core English language arts that depends upon critical research, evaluating sources, analyzing sources, and you don't do research these days without information fluency. Communication and collaboration these days takes place in a digital realm, and so you need to become fluent in these techniques. As far as math, we already mentioned the models, which is an aspect of critical thinking. We also have data analysis as a possibility, as well as the simulations that can be made using software and using that data analysis as a guide. So there's a lot that we can contribute to the conversations with our colleagues who may not be technology folks, who are scratching their heads about how on earth are we going to do these things. We are the answer that has largely been marginalized. It's time for us to come front and center. So how can you do that? Well, one way is to become informed about what the demands are across the curriculum. That means writing across the curriculum. It means numeracy across the curriculum. And there are opportunities in projects and inquiry-driven learning for that. It also means a team approach, so you should offer yourself. Don't wait to be asked. Offer yourself as a member of the team and contribute the things that your colleagues may not be aware of. You want to do it in a nice way so you don't seem like a know-it-all, but to become a valued resource who's able to plus what they do, to extend what they do, that's a valued member of a team. And college and career readiness simply doesn't happen without highly developed digital learning skills. So help your colleagues to become fluent in these aspects. Here's where we're really headed. There is a separating line between what's going on in the U.S. and in less developed countries. And just like the iceberg, it's better to be out of the water unless you have gills. And we're finding that the underwater part of this is routine work, either done by people or machines. That's disappearing. What is expanding is the creative work, research, development, design, marketing, sales, global supply chain. All of these things require the skills that Common Core is meant to develop. The skills that on Webb's domain of knowledge are at the 3 and 4 level instead of the 1 and 2 level that we teach in Test 2 today. So how can we do that? The best way I've seen has been done by Dave Master. He's created STEM challenges that allow kids to do STEM, not just learn about STEM. It involves real-world experiences that are designed by field experts. It provides them with developmentally appropriate pathways and the supports that they need, including the scaffolding and mentoring from field experts. We had the opportunity to do this recently. I got to work with Dave at the Air Force Research Lab. Let's take a look at this video and see how that worked.
I want them to be in your world instead of the school world. So when you think of the timeline, let's give them how you would approach a project like this if this is what they assigned you. We should be so lucky, right? It'd be fun.
I mean, this would be like your first big milestone, so this would probably be like your first third of it, right, is design. I mean, the more research, you don't want to rush through the research and design stage or you're going to pay for it. So I would make this the first, you know, third.
3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah,
Right.
of
Now,
it type
kids have a lot of issues with being held back to get to the action. Is there something in this first 4 weeks where they could do their first action kind of thing, try something out? Would that be okay?
The video is something they have to...
Right, they could be testing concepts this whole time
Okay.
with basic...
Very little low
Right.
level, but that's on their own part, right? I mean,
Right.
it might be something...
So they need to find things around the school or their home that they can bring in that will help to show how levers work or that type of a thing.
Right.
So that this first time is an exploration, research, exploration, and development of the proposal.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's the first third.
They
That's a
could
lot
even-
to do.
They,
in 4
they could
weeks.
even put that in their pitch.
Yeah.
So they can say, this is what we tried.
Yeah, that's how we typically do it. Is inside a proposal, we have two things: similar experiments that we've done that says, "Hey, this is how it works
At this scale.
At this scale, this is we hope to scale it up." And then we also model, and we say, "This is the model we generated."
Okay,
That's something that I would want in the proposal. Is maybe a mathematical model that shows, "Okay, this is parabolic motion. This is the force we're going to need to generate, and that's why we're proposing this." And that's preliminary, just introducing them to the physics of motion and force.
Right. Yeah, if we're going to fund them, they should have a general understanding of these are our prototypes, this is why we think they're going to work, and if you would give us this next money, then we will build this, which we believe to work.
I mean, they could do stuff with pencils
great.
and peas and stuff on, you know.
Yeah, a prototype could be simple as a spoon with a pea on it,
Yeah.
and a tripod going.
Yeah.
As much force launches a pea across.
Yeah,
the
and we were able to follow the trajectory, and we could get it through a hoop that we put up, and we had a target. They could scale that down. They could be working with some,
But
some
then,
of those
yeah,
things.
and then they should understand just like, right, but then again, if they realize that, oh, it took this much force to do it at this part, right, to launch something this much bigger, I need a ton of weight, then they would say, no, that's not going to
Okay.
work.
Yeah, they could have a lever with a hammer like at the fair where you're hitting it. Okay, look, I hit it this hard and it did this. Okay, well then I need to make my arm do this. Or
And that's it.
But
Right.
so
Look
they
at it
have to
now.
do that basic research with
Right.
on-hand things that first week, but that first chunk. But they need to be doing.
And here's the project that resulted. Students had to design a launcher that could launch a payload through a target, in this case the hoop, and to hit the target that you see on the end, a traditional target. The hoop could be moved up or down or forward and back, and the students had to create 3 different trajectories that would allow it to go through the hoop and hit the target. And the payload was not allowed to break, and of course it was a raw egg. The physics involved in doing this allowed the kids to show how they were able to apply the things that they're learning in Common Core in a real-world setting. Let's examine what that looked like. In the first phase, students were using technical writing to use the language of engineering and complex communication skills. That meant they were having to hypothesize, predict, plan, and research. When they did that, they were doing the ISTE-nets of creativity and innovation, critical thinking, and research and information fluency. But what they were doing with Common Core was the integration of knowledge and ideas and the standards of mathematical practice with respect to making sense of problems and modeling with mathematics. That was the first 4 weeks. Then they went into the next phase of 6 weeks where they conducted their investigations and recorded their actions and results. That then brought in the idea of iteration and peer review, which meant they were going to be doing communication and collaboration and using their technology operations and concepts in terms of designing and running their experiments. With respect to Common Core, this meant key ideas and details, following a complex multi-step procedure and taking measurements and reporting them back, as well as the mathematical standards of practice of using the right tools appropriately and attending to precision. And finally, when they submitted their results and presented their findings, they were using digital citizenship, but they were also integrating knowledge and ideas by developing their arguments and evaluating claims of other teams, and then reasoning abstractly and quantitatively and constructing viable arguments, critiquing the reason of others, both in English language arts and in mathematics. So we can see how the types of things that we do as technology teachers can really make a real difference in how these students are able to expand their skills and apply what they learn in ways that are meaningful in real life. And remember that the deepest learning happens when the students take ownership. They're able to say why they made every decision they made about their project each step of the way. That does not happen in the back of the book.